Hey everyone, this is Devin here. I just wanted to come. There's been a lot going on with a lot of things that's been happening by the new president, by President Trump, and all the executive orders that he signed. And particularly, I want to talk about one that I have a little more experience in others, and that is his attack on the diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility, or DEIA is what they call it. That's what that stands for. And I've heard a lot of people are really upset, and I've heard many people mention certain things, and I need to make sure that in our arguments and in our defense of it that we have the facts right, because there's been certain things that haven't been totally accurate, but we can get into that. Now let me just say that I've worked in the field of equal opportunity for over 27 years. I started off in the 1990s working as a federal equal employment opportunity investigator, or federal EEO investigator, trainer, and mediator. So I've handled probably over 1,000 investigations, and I've handled both complaints from the EEO standpoint, which is Title VII. I'm going to talk about that in a minute, and Title VI from the programming side. And I've done investigations. I've actually investigated a case of a Black farmer who felt that they were being discriminated against. And then I worked almost 19 years for the local DC Transit Authority as the senior EEO officer. Now, during that 19-year stint, our title changed from time to time. We were initially just the senior EEO officer, but then at one point they added, not only did they add diversity, so we was the EEO and diversity officer. Sometimes we were employee relations and EEO. We did a little bit of everything. And so I think I'm in a good position to talk about this, but I want to make sure that everyone is accurate. Let's take a look real quick on what's been going on. I actually pulled up the actual statement from the White House to talk about DEI so that we can have a clear understanding of what it is. This is their fact sheet. President Donald Trump's, as they call it, protects civil rights and merit-based opportunities from ending illegal DEI. Now, keep in mind, discrimination is determined by the courts. So it depends on who's in power. Some may consider discrimination, others may not. But this is what they said, and it opens up protecting civil rights and expanding individual opportunity. I highlighted a few things. What this particular executive order did, this was on January 22nd, 2025, it terminates diversity, equity, and inclusion DEI discrimination in the federal workplace and in federal contracts and spending. Okay. And that's in federal hiring, promotions, and performance reviews will reward individual initiative. What they're saying is you can't use any of these other practices. You got to just look at individual initiative and you make a determination based on that and that alone. I highlighted another point, that it revoked Executive Order 11246, contracting criteria mandating affirmative action. That's the big issue. It requires simple and unmistakable affirmation that contractors will not engage in illegal discrimination, including illegal DEI. So let's just take that for a moment. If you're a contractor and you want to contract with the federal government, you have to affirm. Now, they're getting rid of affirmative action on one level, but they're bringing it on another level, saying that you have to affirm that you will not engage in illegal discrimination, including illegal DEI. So he's made it a determination that it's illegal. The Supreme Court have made some decisions as well, but not to the extent that he has here. So I guarantee that there's going to be some litigation and there's going to be some court filings on this and whether or not this is constitutional, because again, it's all subjective. But if you're going to get a contract in the government, you almost now have to admit, whether you agree with it or not, that DEI is illegal. I'm going to continue on here underneath the part where it says restoring the values of individual dignity and hard work and excellence. I want to make sure that you understand that there's a difference between EEO and diversity. And in fact, when you take a look at EEO is law. The president can't change that. That has to come from an act of Congress. EEO, in this particular instance, focused on Title VII of the Civil Rights Act, but EEO is a set of laws and policies that mandate all individual rights to equal employment opportunity, irrespective of race, color, sex, sexual orientation, national origin, religion, age, disability, or participation in protected EEO activity. And there's some others that we're going to mention. Diversity, on the other hand, is proactive efforts to promote inclusiveness and respect differences in the workplace. So diversity is even broader than what EEO is in a sense, because you have differences in many different capacities. Somebody may live in one part of the country or is from one part of the country and another one's another part of the country. That's diverse. Somebody may be shorter than someone else. Somebody else may have an experience as a chef, whereas somebody else might be a mechanic. It's all those differences that you bring into a workplace. And once you understand that there's differences, you empower everyone so that they can bring their experiences to the table to accomplish the set goal that you have in that particular organization. If you have Title VII and you say, okay, look, we're gonna create a law and nobody can discriminate. But if you have no action to support that, then it's basically empty. That's what's happening here more so than anything else. You just remember that these are laws, the laws that did not change, and they still apply. Even when you take a look at what President Trump said in this statement, I'm going to read this and you can interpret it yourself. It says, reversing the progress made in the decades since the Civil Rights Act of 1964 toward a colorblind and competence-based workplace. Radical DEI has dangerously tainted many of our critical businesses and influential institutions, including the federal government. So basically, it sounds like what they're saying is that they support the Civil Rights Act of 1964. They don't support DEI. They believe that DEI contradicts the Civil Rights Act, and that's what's going to really going to be the issue moving forward. But we know from the things he's said, the things that he's done, when you move forward in this particular instance, you'll find that there are so many more ways that they're actually attacking this, especially when you take a look at how they're supporting contractors. Look at all the people that was on the stage with them when he was inaugurated. You look at Elon Musk, you look at Zuckerberg, you look at all these other folks. You had the three richest men in the world. And what this particular effort did was it made it easier for contractors to not have to take action to show that they're not discriminating. This is another statement that was issued on January 21st, 2025, by the White House. It is called Ending Illegal Discrimination and Restoring Merit-Based Opportunity. If you take a look I'm going to go to page 2 on the top of this executive order, and this is very, very, very important. I think we can say it says Section 2 policy. It is the policy of the United States to protect the civil rights of all Americans and to promote individual initiative, excellence, and hard work. I therefore order all executive departments and agencies to terminate all discriminatory and illegal preferences. So he's determining that they're discriminatory and illegal. There have been some Supreme Court cases that spoke about very specific examples of affirmative action, but he's taken it in a broader step and is taking it to this next level. Mandates, policies, programs, activities, guidance, regulations, enforcement actions, consent orders, and requirements. I further order all agencies to enforce our longstanding civil rights laws. So he's pointing back to the 11 civil rights laws that have that were underneath the 1964 Civil Rights Act, which include Title VI and Title VII. I'm gonna mention those in just a minute, and to combat illegal private sector DEI preferences, mandates, policies, programs, and activities. So he goes here, it says terminating illegal discrimination in the federal government. The following executive actions are hereby revoked. Executive Order 12898 of February 11, 1994. Federal actions to address environmental justice in minority populations and low-income populations. Executive Order 13583 of August 18th, 2011. It established a coordinated government-wide initiative to promote diversity and inclusion in the federal workforce. Another one, and I'm going to skip down to one very important one, the Executive Order 11246 of September 24th, 1965. Equal employment opportunity is hereby revoked. So this is the affirmative action. This is what mandated an affirmative action, and it also mandated that contractors had an affirmative responsibility to show and to take action to ensure that they were not discriminate or that they were hiring. And they generally had certain numbers. You know, if you were underrepresented in certain groups of race, sex, I believe even in others, that you can hire someone if you had two people that were equal of the same qualifications and experience, and you can show that you had that you were underrepresented in one group. You could then use race or sex to be able to hire somebody for that position. That's pretty much what affirmative action was. And people had to do these big, huge affirmative action plans. I've seen them. They're very exhaustive, but yet that was something that people had to do. So executive order 11246 for affirmative action has been revoked. He did say that for 90 days from the date of this order, federal contractors may continue to comply with the regulatory scheme in effect on January 20th, 2025. I'm going to skip down, and it says that the following executive orders are revoked, and it says the Office of Federal Contract Compliance Programs within the Department of Labor shall immediately cease, and I'm going to go to number C, allowing or encouraging federal contractors or subcontractors to engage in workforce balancing based on race, color, sex, sexual preference, religion, and national origin. So basically, again, if you recognize that you're underrepresented in certain areas based upon what you have in the population, you can file a discrimination. I mean, back then they had to take certain affirmative actions. Now they don't have to do that at all. And so that's one of the things that I saw in that. So that's pretty much what I want to move on there. So let me just make sure that we understand and we can recognize what these different laws are. The laws that did not change, the laws that are still in existence, as I mentioned, is Title VII of the Civil Rights Act. There are 11 titles, and this prohibits discrimination based on race, color, sex, which includes and I'll talk about the others, but includes gender identification, sexual orientation, religion, national origin, and retaliation. You have the Equal Pay Act of 1963, what they call EPA. It protects men and women. Notice, men and women who perform substantially equal work from sex-based wage discrimination. You have the Age Discrimination and Employment Act of 1967. It protects employees and job applicants who are 40 years old and older from employment discrimination based on age. You have the Rehabilitation Act of 1973. Applicable sections prohibit discrimination in federal employment against qualified individuals with disabilities. Also, it requires employers to provide reasonable accommodation to qualified individuals with disabilities who are employees or applicants for employment. You also have the Civil Rights Act of 1991, which provides rights to a jury trial and monetary damages in case of employment discrimination. And you have the No Fear Act of effective October 1st, 2003, which prohibits discrimination and retaliation against federal workers for participating in the EEO process or whistleblower activities. You have the Genetic Information Non-Discrimination Act of 2008, which prohibits use of genetic information in health insurance and employment. And then you have the Lilly Ledbetter Act, Fair Pay Act of 2009. It's the 180-day statute of limitations for filing an equal pay lawsuit resets with each new discriminatory paycheck. So all those laws are still here. So we can't say that he got rid of the civil rights laws. What we can say is that he has weakened them by taking away this proactive opportunity through diversity. And pretty much, again, I have what we call Uncle Devin's PSAs: problem, solution, and action. For every problem, there's a solution. But the solution doesn't mean nothing if you don't implement that solution. And typically, it ain't just someone else implementing. You have to take see what part you're going to play in implementing. So you have the action: problem, solution, action. Virtually, he's taken away a lot of the action, but people still can file discrimination complaints. You absolutely can. The hardest thing is, I believe he's going to instruct the Department of Justice to halt a lot of these cases, because what happens is, if you file a discrimination complaint, people like myself, who is an investigator, is assigned to come and investigate. We are really fact finders. And then there's an agency decision. Someone sits down with the facts and make a decision on whether or not there was discrimination. If there was discrimination, there's what they call a final agency decision. Sometimes people go straight to the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission and they conduct their own investigations. Well, if the EEOC finds that there's discrimination, or even in those instances where an individual may find discrimination, the EEOC can send that case over to the Department of Justice, and the Department of Justice can determine whether or not they're going to file a lawsuit on behalf of that complainant against the entity that had discriminated against them. It says here in the Washington Post that the Justice Department has ordered the Civil Rights Division to halt much of its investigative activity dating from the Biden administration and not pursue new indictments, cases, or settlements, according to a memo sent to the temporary head of the division that was obtained by the Washington Post. The letter instructs Kathleen Wolf, designated by the Trump administration as the supervisor of the division, to ensure that civil rights attorneys do not file any new complaints, motions to intervene, agreed upon remands, amicus briefs, or statements of interest. Let me go to Title VI. Title VI of the Civil Rights Act, which I'm also an investigator for, prohibits discrimination based on 3 categories: race, color, and national origin in programs that receive federal financial assistance. Now, federal financial assistance can include a number of things, such as food assistance, unemployment benefits, welfare benefits, emergency housing assistance, rental assistance, help with utilities, home repair assistance programs, federal Pell Grants, and more. I'm still waiting to see how many of these, his DEI, anti-DEI policies will impact Title VI. I'm not sure. And let me also say, I am not an attorney. I just play one on television. So what I would just simply say is tell people to take a breath. These things are widespread. He certainly is going after those who are DEI officials in the federal government. They've already put them on paid administrative leave, and they're taking action to pretty much remove them from their positions within a 60 to 90-day period, if I remember correctly. So he's moving directly in that particular direction. But my thing is this, and then I'll end with this, because I'm going to share some more information about what's going on. Why are we surprised? Why are we surprised when a snake bites you? Because that's what snakes do. Why are we upset when we see these things implemented? This is what he does. We need to be more focused on what we're going to do, because guess what? When we organize and when we're together, there's nothing they can do. I don't care how large their army is. I don't care how much money they think they may have or they may have. Our unity is way more stronger than any type of devices that they may have. And we have to come together to do so. I'm going to be sharing with you some of the things that I've been putting forth over the last really 35 years, going back to when I stood up in protest at the AME Zion Church about our lack of inactivity. We've been playing all these different years. We've been wanting to be a part of a system so bad that we've been willing to connect with an evil, rotten capitalist system like this, not realizing that at some point that whole game is going to end, and it's ending now. It's going to be a lot of hard times for people. We're going to have to get prepared for it. But what is also going to have to do is we're going to have to strengthen ourselves. So I want you to click on the bell and follow me, because I'm going to be sharing some information specifically from my book, The Way of the Gentiles. But in here, back in 1992, I wrote a direct action plan and submitted it to the African Methodist Episcopal Zion Church, of which I was a member and I grew up in. And this thing is laid out about specific things that we can do to be able to control our own destiny. That's what we need to be doing. Doesn't matter what they do at this point. You can get mad and focus on that. But what this should be is a wake-up call for us in our community to politically organize. And I don't mean electoral politics, but we come together using whatever principles, the Nguzo Saba principles, the Pan-African principles, you name it. But the time is now. We have to do it. And so I just wanted to make sure that people understood that the civil rights laws are still intact. You can still file an EEO complaint. You can still file complaints based on any of those protected groups that I mentioned. And so that's very important to understand that they haven't gone away. The problem is, will they support it? Which I have a feeling that they won't support it from the standpoint of giving it the resources, telling attorneys, especially the Department of Justice, not to pursue certain cases, especially a lot of the cases that they, dealing with the LGBTQ community. That's just my thinking. So anyway, I just wanted to share that with you. This goes hand in hand with my campaign of EEO through the arts. This is what, because I'm combining both my EEO background with my artistic background. But hey, we are here. Strap up, Get ready to fight because it's here. And we can change it, but we're going to have to sacrifice. We're going to have to work with each other. We're going to have to organize. Be ready to organize. I hope to see you next time. Take care.